You're listening to Until They Sleep, a podcast where two parents finally get to sit down and discuss all the different things that run through their heads every day because their four kids are finally asleep. Thanks for listening.
Welcome back to Until They Sleep, everyone. I'm your host, Daniel, joined by my lovely wife.
Hello.
And the wife has been talking about doing a podcast about the book club, and she talked to the ladies in the group, and they were cool and they were down for it, and she's been hinting it, and we're going to talk about this book. What was it called again?
Lessons in Chemistry.
That's right. I was having a brain fart there for a second. Lessons in Chemistry. I actually listened to it and watched the show so that I can relate and also have conversations with my wife about it. But let us know more about what's going on.
So I got together with the ladies and we had our book club meeting about lessons in chemistry. And I thank you, ladies, for joining me. It was my first time interviewing a group of people, so it wasn't perfect. And, in retrospect, I wish I had asked more questions to introduce book club members to our audience. And I didn't, but they're content and okay doing it again. We will do it again another time on some other book. And I will make sure to introduce them better. So instead of just jumping right into the book. And my husband and I will also be doing review of this as, from a male perspective later on. All right. Thank you and enjoy. Welcome back to Until They Sleep. This is Chantel, and I'm joined by my friends and book club ladies. Would you like to say your names?
Sure.
Okay. Go ahead.
Karina,
Britt,
Cindy,
and Hazel.
So thank you, ladies, for joining me and for getting together to discuss the book Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus. And for those who do not know, so Lessons in Chemistry is about a chemist lady, Mrs. Elizabeth Zott, and how her struggles in Ms. Elizabeth Zott, and her struggles in being a chemist in a male-dominated field. And I guess we were discussing a little bit earlier that some of us read the book completely a while ago. Some of us didn't get a chance to get through the whole book. So some of this information might be a surprise for some people. Did you guys find the book relatable?
Yes, in a historical sense.
Okay.
I can't say that I've felt that kind of discrimination. I also have never been in a position where it's a male-dominated field.
Okay. So
I can't say I have felt how ugly men and women too were behaving towards her, but I feel it's accurate
for that time frame. So this is taken in the 1950s, 1960s. Anybody else feel that it was relatable?
Oh, yes, very, very relatable.
Yes? Do you feel?
The way that men, because their initials are Easy, they call her Miss Easy. She studied in UCLA, so that was really nice to be close to being in Los Angeles area. It was interesting, and I was born in the late 60s, so for me, I chose science, and I had many discrimination, very much a majority in everything I did. So first, when I listened to it, it's like it really hasn't changed much. There is still teachers who tell you, why don't you get married? There is still...
really?
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I came to the U.S., because I feel like American women fought really hard in the 60s and 70s for more equality. So it's probably different here, but I didn't pick a woman-related field to work, so I definitely saw it.
Yeah, we both work in the education field, so it is woman heavy, and oftentimes men are the bosses, but it's not really discrimination because all your peers are also women, so it's not often you feel that. But I did feel like men rise to management easier and faster. Like they seem to get some privilege.
Okay.
Is there more structure in the salary though? Is
Yeah,
there any difference in male or female?
It's like public knowledge, so I think
Yeah.
that's stopped any inequality with pay.
And I still question me why women paid, and I'm not afraid to speak up, so don't make friends sometimes. But when I find out how women are paid than men, and I'm like, oh, how come? And I make sure I tell it in a public meeting. How come? Because you say you're also equal. How come women get hired at that, but men always hire? And but if we keep quiet and say nothing, that's why I really like to hear her voice, because we have to speak up. And what she went through, we cannot just let it dormant. It's not fair for the women in the 60s who fought so hard and put their life on the line at time for changes. So we have to continue. And if we have daughters, we have to definitely continue us on.
So this is very passionate
Oh, yeah.
for you because you're in this field. You're
I'm
in a
the
scientific field.
Yeah, I'm in the field very men. We were only 5 women in my promotion, my bachelor, for 80 guys. And it was, we're very much looked upon. Like, why are they here? Are they going to take the place of the man? And why are you doing this? Why don't you get married? Why don't you do this? Like men, teachers trying to destabilize us. And because I was raised by a single mom, very vocal, I never had a problem to tell them what they did wrong. And some appreciated it and actually supported me. And I always noticed it was the men who raised daughters who were the most supportive. Mm-hmm. Because they enlighten a little bit how women brain works. Not that we're so different, but we are different.
No, we're different.
And how the women brain works, and they probably saw me as I could be their daughter or their niece, so they helped me so much. Mm-hmm. And that's what's interesting. Sometimes men supervisor or staff were more supportive than women supervisor, but that's another story. But definitely on the teachers, we maybe had 10 teachers in math and physics, and there was one who was a woman. And they were usually brilliant, much more brilliant to get to that level. So when she talked about UCLA and what she went through, that was very, yeah, I didn't think the book would be so...
and then, of course, when she's in school, she experiences sexual harassment from her teacher. And, I mean...
Then a sexual assault.
A sexual assault, yes. Mm-hmm. And so that was... do you feel that this is prevalent even still today, or just definitely something more prevalent back in those days?
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, with the Me Too movement, I think a lot of that has come to light now. And she didn't get any support from the police or anything when that happened in the book. But these days, I think they have to take it more seriously.
But they don't always.
No, not always.
I had an incident where it was not sexual harassment. They tried to intimidate me, and I tried to talk to I don't want to say where I work, but I tried to alert and say, oh no, he's just a jerk. I'm like, no, he's not a jerk.
Right,
he's trying to intimidate me to leave, and that's not going to happen. And so I think the intimidation is still there. What I see, the beauty of it, and with social media and having a camera with you all the time, it's so easy to record, so you have proof. Because otherwise, it's your word against someone else.
Yes.
And a lot of time, it's white male who wins. Let's just be real. That's the way it goes. So I think we always have to find enlightened people, and they are in both gender. So you have to be careful on who you trust, and you have to learn to tell them, no, that's not okay. Because and I think it's easier to do in this country for sure.
And
I think so too.
Your experience is from when you were in France.
Yeah, no, here.
Yeah.
No,
oh,
that
here
was
too.
Here.
Oh, that was here.
Not long ago.
Okay.
Not long ago, and everybody dismissed. Oh no, I'm like, no, this is not. This is someone who tried to intimidate me, threaten me, and I'm going to back out now. And then when he did it to other women who had more connection than me, then he got fired. Mm. So me, I knew my limit. I say, I'm not going to spend all my energy. That's something you learn as you get older, is it worth spending my energy? Mm-hmm. And if it put my family at risk, because the person knew where I lived and everything, then I'm backing up. I'm not going to, so no, I think it's still prevalent, and that's what I saw in the beginning, is how little things have changed, really.
Okay.
Oftentimes, though, it's the typical bully situation. They just need to see that you're not going to cower, and then they back off. I will say my daughter has been in the engineering track at her school, and that's what she's going to. She wants to study when she goes off to college. She was one of 4 minority students that were in the class, and the only girl. And so her teacher has been very supportive, but being a white male is still very cognizant of his limitations. Mm-hmm. So he would have to back off, especially because where we live, there's families they're like the established families of the town. So, and their kids are there. And I mean, you'll have kids that are not getting suspended for blatant violations. And it's because who they are related to.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I can't really, I tell them stuff, but there's only so much they can do.
But that's where you have to have vocal mothers who go in and go tell the school the way they see it.
Yeah.
And maybe
Because-
it's still a privileged society, depending on where you are in the town.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
it's
definitely.
terrible.
And so he allowed her she regularly had her AirPods in and, should I say earbuds?
You can say what.
Okay.
Yeah,
He's sponsored. But
yeah I'm not. You can just
But
say
you could.
no
If
sponsor.
If you want to sponsor us, just let us
You
know.
could, AirPod makers.
It's at hashtag.
So, and she'd get to work because she's like, Mom,
Yeah.
they're saying things to me. I'm the only girl. So you can't tell me that the gross things that they're saying, they're not directing it at me. And so she just.
So
has-
the key is to make friends with the bullies. That's what I did my whole childhood. I was in an all Catholic school. You had the bullies, became friend with them. They leave you alone. Same thing in high school. You're friend with them. That's one way to. That's not the best way, but if you can fight it directly, that's one way to be left alone. Not that it's so correct.
Yes, definitely. However, she doesn't want to be friends with the bullies. It's just like.
Well, me, that was my
And-
only way to survive.
and
I
so-
would have been killed otherwise. You know?
And so she did develop very early on this very hard.
She's very strong.
She's very strong, but she's developed a very hard shell,
Yeah.
and is very guarded. So she comes off
Bitchy.
real bitchy, like a real
Yeah,
bitch
see, that's the
sometimes.
difference. Me, I would cry all the time. But I know your daughter, and she's very, very confident and very. No, she has that. She present like, don't mess with me.
Right.
And so bullies, they want a reaction.
So, with your daughter's experience and how she has created this external hard shell to protect herself from the bullying, taking it back to the book, is that why Elizabeth is the way she is? Maybe like this hard, don't mess with me. I'm a know-it-all, stuck-up bitch, and you need to just leave me
that's-
alone.
I think that's the perception of everyone around her. I don't think that she had a hard shell. She was very matter-of-factly, and some people that just rubs people the
Rubs them
wrong
the wrong
way.
way.
All those little instances where everybody got on my absolute last nerve. Like, I hated most of the people in the story.
Yes.
What's her
Let's be honest.
Frass?
Frass, Mrs.
I wanted to slap the shit out of
Yes.
her constantly.
Yes.
Because instead of working to fix the problem, she's contributing
Yes.
to it.
I agree.
even
And-
acknowledged that she was contributing. And,
Yeah,
and
like, at the end-
disliked that she was doing it, but continued.
yeah, like towards the end, I was like, all right.
You get it.
Pass,
Well, so,
very.
and for those who don't know or recall who Miss Frask is, or Mrs. Frask, she's the secretary at Hastings, and she, like you said, she's perpetuating the issues against Elizabeth Zott. Instead of being a woman in arms with her and supporting her and being against the discrimination that is happening in
Leading it at
Hastings.
times, even.
Yeah,
But
she's-
it's a lot
she's-
easier to do that because you're on the side of the winner, so called. When a lot of women, they're like, oh, if I side with the men, then they're going to consider me. If I going against the wave,
But
or how do you-
it's a bit like you're saying, making friends with the bully.
Yeah, and it's
Same
not
thing, huh?
always
This is-
beneficial.
Right.
Right.
you got to. That's a survival mode.
It is.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
To her, though, she ends up getting fired because she gains like a little bit of weight. She's not pregnant, but when Elizabeth was pregnant, she was kind of part of the push to get her out of there and like really
Because she was
shamed her.
pregnant. Yeah.
Wouldn't let her have any of his stuff that he left behind and was like guarding her, even like going in his office when they lived together for 4 years. So it was really silly. She was really on a power trip.
Yeah,
at
she
that
was.
time.
Yeah.
But on the beginning, when she gets sexually abused and she's pushed out of UCLA, does
This
she
is
even finish
Elizabeth.
a degree or
She
anything?
didn't.
Well, she was in the
got
doctoral
master's.
program.
She was in a doctor.
Yeah.
She got the masters, but they wouldn't let her do a doctorate. Correct.
Yeah.
They gave her an option.
She was vocal, or she said?
Oh no, she was vocal about
So
it.
they-
They gave her an option to basically it was like just let it go and we're going to give you the certificate. Like we'll let you graduate but just leave us alone.
Yeah.
Going back to the Me Too movement, and what's the guy, the director?
For
Harvey Weinstein.
Weinstein. Okay.
Okay.
So just like with him, it was the secret that's on the open. The same thing with the professor.
Wait, are you talking about the director of Hastings?
No, the direct at UCLA, the one that
Oh,
she
okay.
stabbed.
Yeah, that she stabs.
Which, come on now,
Oh, I thought you were talking
having
about
to maintain some level of restraint. I just can't see myself not doing like multiple
Stabs.
Yes.
With a
Maybe
pencil.
get the pencil
Well,
out.
and she
You know what?
said,
He was
going
he was
all
a
the way.
portly gentleman.
and she
right?
did say
Went all the way.
when she was being told, just leave it alone, and then they asked her, you have anything else to say?
Oh, some more-
She wishes she had more pencils.
She did, yes.
She did say she wishes she'd had more
She
pencils.
wouldn't have been able to get that one.
Because for
pencil out,
people
but
who
they-
don't know, you want to say what happened when what she did?
Well, yeah, because he raped her.
And
Yeah.
then-
Yeah, and then she stabbed him with a pencil. Yeah, but she wishes she'd had more pencils. So
Oh,
she,
yeah. Right.
she's not regretful of what she did
Yeah.
because he.
And that's what the policeman asked her, do you have any remorse? Well, no,
Yeah.
other than the fact that she
I-
didn't have more pencils.
Yeah.
And the book states he's a known lecher. So everybody participates in it by just turning the blind eye because they give this man this importance. So all these brilliant minds are just being kept under his.
Yeah,
His hat.
But that's
Yeah.
happened a lot in
Well,
the
no,
college.
yeah.
Well, and that's why I feel
Yeah.
it resonates because it has happened. I might not have necessarily experienced it in this regard, but it's happening now. Still.
But when you were saying who it is, when I mentioned the infamous Harvey Weinstein, he's a producer who also a lot of people knew that he was abusing women and actresses. I thought
Yeah,
you were
people were going back
and
in the
they-
Oscars and
they're
making comments, like jokes.
And I didn't understand how everybody said his name. I found this is weird. What kind of leverage he has on people that they say his name, It's because saying his name guarantee them a movie or whatever.
Yeah.
Going back to the story on Elizabeth and her exterior, then if that exterior that the way she comes across, then if it's not necessarily from having to deal with her environment of bullies, would you consider the way she was raised as being why she is this way? Because she was raised by
who's-
con preachers who hated their gay son, and her brother was the only one who ever protected her, but he was also the one who got her interested in chemistry because of the chemical reaction of pistachios. So
I was wondering, I have a different thought on her, like maybe she has autism.
I thought the
think so, too.
same
Because
thing.
And him too, Calvin too.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Love on the
And let's be
Spectrum.
real,
I've
even
seen
the
like
dog.
couples and they both have
But a lot
autism.
of scientists are on the spectrum.
Yeah, for sure.
Because to be really good, you have to be completely focused on one thing.
Oh
and,
my
and
gosh.
people on the spectrum,
Yeah.
they're very good at that.
I had put that question on this list and I deleted it because my husband thought it was ridiculous. And here is me caving into my husband, yes. And he's like, I don't think
No,
I don't
we
think
don't
you're
want
correct.
that.
And I thought about it and I thought about it. I was like,
No, I totally
maybe I
thought
shouldn't.
about it
I
too.
didn't
Like
think of that.
that's why they
Maybe because I'm surrounded by
They-
so many women on spectrum.
Maybe. I mean, but the way she talks, like she's so like robotic, but like a person with autism is.
Yes, yes.
and naive, like incredibly naive.
Yeah, and how
Yes.
she must just tell the truth. It's
Very
not
matter
like,
of
that's
fact.
true. That's
like
true.
about when she talked about this is coming up a question, but when she said that she doesn't believe in God, like that's unnecessary. But she just has to be so honest. She has to say whatever she
But don't
wants.
you think we all on the
thinks.
spectrum?
Oh yeah, but she's
Some more than
maybe
others.
yeah, she's a little more on
But
it.
the best scientists I met, they were very much on the spectrum because you
Yeah,
have to really
and
be focused.
her
on
and
one
Calvin's
thing.
relationship, like even like how she started rowing. It wasn't a conversation. It wasn't like, "Do you want to?" It's just like, "You're gonna love it. You have
Yeah.
to do this." And he had all these like real
The rules for it.
rules for it,
Yes.
but also like the procedural parts of it are very like a person with autism and like how it has to be in this order. Remember when he was in the boathouse and he was like erging in the middle and she was like, "Oh my god, like move over because there's so
And he
many
couldn't.
people."
Yeah.
He didn't even notice.
Yeah.
Like he's just oblivious and
Unaware
a person with autism is like really not
Aware of this.
they're not aware of other
Their
people's
environment.
reactions or like how it's affecting
I
them.
just thought it was her over
That must be
confidence, which I thought was wonderful.
Well, and
but they
People with
probably-
autism do sometimes
Yes,
appear
come
to
off
be
that
like
way.
arrogant, but they're not. They're
They're just matter of factly.
and they don't
Yes.
notice. So
like it's a fact. I'm
Which
really
is
smart.
why they're good scientists because science is about fact.
Yes.
It's not about ideology. It's
Right.
facts.
Do you think there's any other career she would have been good at? And why chemistry? Why do you think she was attracted to chemistry?
Probably anything in the science realm.
Probably reminded of her brother, the relationship she had with
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
And how much
And the
because she was
research and
self-taught.
the
on
logic.
Yes, she was
and-
self-taught
yeah.
taught.
The origin of her interest in chemistry came from a safe and loving place.
Yes.
Her mom proposed being smart about who she marries, but she didn't want to get married. Like she wanted to do the total opposite. But her parents were not.
Because we
Safe.
always want
They were
to
not
do
safe.
the
They were not
opposite
safe,
of-
but her brother to her was safe, and
Yeah.
so and the library was safe,
Yeah.
and as she was self-taught, then with his influence, and
How old was he when he killed himself?
I don't remember.
I think 17 because
Okay. And she was like
10.
Oh.
She was 10.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she
that
was
I
very
So
remember.
it's
She was
right
young.
after he saved her from drowning then. She felt guilty that she couldn't save him when he saved her from drowning. He jumped after. But then the person who interviewed this said, but you don't know how to swim.
Well, and then she said neither did he. He jumped in and saved her, so that made her feel like
didn't?
extra guilty because
She couldn't save him. That has to be
from
the,
himself.
But that has to be the worst, to have a sibling that you care so much who commits suicide. Yeah.
Okay, so we've kind of covered like the whole discrimination and how
Yeah.
in the field of education, like you two are in, you don't really feel it because you're surrounded by women. I myself, the only sense of discrimination I've ever felt was maybe in my first job, and it was more of my value as a young, I was like 17, 18 with my first job, and my boss wouldn't give me a raise for years. Like I was there 3-4 years with him, and he wouldn't give me a raise, and it wasn't until I quit that he realized how much I actually did for him, and then asked me to come back. So I felt I came back under very specific terms and
got your
only
raise?
to hire somebody. Yeah, he paid me what I wanted, but it was only to train somebody to replace me properly because I did not want to
But that's one of
stay
the
there.
things we don't teach our daughters in how to know their value, financial value. Because even if you don't care about money or whatever, some people only consider you if you make so much, and it's a tool. It's a way to.
It's true, titles and money.
Yeah.
That's
But it is also very much ingrained. It's the design of the system. You would get in trouble if you shared your salary and you
Information.
mentioned it out
Because the
loud.
bosses don't want you to share. 'cause
Yeah,
then you
well,
know-
yeah, precisely. And so, you would face repercussions for sharing it out loud. And so now I know that it's law now that you should not face any.
Well, like we have
that-
that
No, it's
website,
not.
Transparent
The Transparent.
California.
yeah. So I wasn't making
Because
it.
it's
no, you're not making it up.
Yeah, so it's flagrant. And
But you
and
guys work in the public sector,
Yeah.
Yes.
I work in private too before.
so
And
well,
I demanded the job I care about the least. I demanded a lot of money, and they give it to me, and I didn't care because I didn't want the job.
So
So
you're
I got
like,
the
all right,
money.
thank you, bye, bitches.
Yeah, after 3 months, I say, here you
But
go.
back in the 80s when I first came,
Because you're in finance too. You were in
I
finance.
was
So
in finance and I worked for a private small company. Very happy with them. I loved the people. And then I was offered another job for probably twice as much money than I was making. I thought, well, I needed it at the time because my husband was going to school. So I went back to my boss and I said, I hate to do this, but I have to leave because it's just making more sense for me. And they matched it.
well, that's nice.
And,
That you were
it's
valued.
nice, but then
but you
when-
didn't
when
do it with the
now-
intention of,
Yeah.
No, I
of
didn't
blackmailing.
No, not at all.
Because you were honest.
I was, but
And I
was
think
a-
that's where women have to speak up, because I can tell you the repercussions in this country are not what they're in other countries.
Right.
And no, actually, they respect you.
Yes.
If you say nothing in this country, they walk all over you.
Yes, yes.
And-
well, had
and-
I not said anything, I'm sure
You would
they
have
would have
never
just
got-
paid me
Yeah.
what I was being paid.
Yeah.
And a lot of time, bosses
And I
told me
really
that.
thought that it was fair, and I thought that's all they
Yeah.
could afford because it was just a small business.
Yes.
But then when I
Yeah.
said I'm leaving, it's like, oh no.
So imagine.
I was like, you could have given this to me a long time ago since you guys care about me so much.
Well,
You-
I
No, but if you
know,
don't
I'm
ask,
only
no, but
thinking
that's the
that
thing. If you
now.
don't ask,
But before, I was just elated because I could
Yeah.
stay with the people that I really
You had
liked.
boss
I
bonus
enjoyed
plus
it.
plus.
Yes.
But I had a boss who I asked him, well, how much are the women make? I didn't know there was a law, because I'm a foreigner, so I don't know anything. And so I was like, well, how come this person, what does they get paid? And he told me she doesn't get paid more because she never asked for more. Oh, I'm like, what a load of. And so that taught me that you better ask, because otherwise.
Well, and I think that's more prevalent in private companies.
private.
It's
But
different,
like
isn't it? Not
when
a
I
structured
just started my
environment.
last 2 jobs, 3 jobs, I negotiated with with them, and I waited. Like one job, they offered it to me in November, and then I talked to them in December and said if they gave me just my years, I wanted to from one district to another district get your same amount of years experience so you could be on the pay scale. And it took like 2 months before they came back and offered me the job. Then the next job, they wanted to start me. They were giving me my years because it was within that district, but they wanted to start me at step 1, and I'm like, I think I should be at this step because I've been doing this, and like had a fight with them, like a real verbal fight with the HR lady.
Wow.
And then, I mean,
Because they're not on your side.
I was professional.
HR is never on the side.
Then she did give it to me, and then with the last job, I asked the HR person like, should I ask? Like, I'll take it even if they don't give it to me. She's like, yeah, ask, and she like encouraged me.
That's a rare HR person.
Yeah, it was great.
Because they're on the side of the company. They don't
Miss
want
Frask.
to be.
But so I did. Then they started me like a couple columns in with this job.
So may that be a
too,
lesson for all the young
Yeah,
girls
you
right
have
there.
to
Go and
ask.
ask and be ready to wait, but you will get
And
what
also
you deserve.
turn it down if they won't.
Yeah.
If you're making more where you already are.
And that's the thing, when you care too much about that job, you lose some leverage already. You have, even if you care, you have to act like you don't care.
Yeah.
Or just
And emotions are good. Again, we can go on all the stuff, all the bosses, guys who tell you, oh, you're so emotional. I'm like, you mean I'm a human being?
Yeah.
It's just drive me to the wall, because it's the way that I still dismiss women. Oh, they're too emotional, they're too this, they're too that. And it's like, this is just, we haven't changed that much yet.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump to another question. Why do you think that rowing is important in the story?
I just put it was pushing her through a man's sport or man's realm, and the fact that it was Calvin that introduced her into it. So
Like way to connect with him still.
Yeah.
After she lost
well, I mean,
him.
he yes, for sure. But even just from the start, when he was on my nerves, I couldn't stand.
Why?
When at first, when he was like, "You're gonna do it," and she's like, "No," it's like, can she have a thought?
But maybe
She's a
that's
scientist.
autism.
But
Yeah.
No,
I
it's
think so.
totally his
For me, it's the
autism.
best
When
for
you think about
her.
it that way.
But what was funny about rowing is that when I was in college in France, I always try a ton of different sports, and the most dangerous the better. And rowing, there was this really dirty river, and so the college we could go rowing. And of course, I wanted to see if I could beat the guys and do better. So I go in the front. So when you row, you set the cadence, and I had really tall guys behind me, so it was intense. And so it's such a wonderful sport, because we know we use our whole body. And so I thought that was interesting. For me, I thought she was lucky. See, I didn't think like you. I said, oh, she's lucky he's pushing her to row, because me, nobody understood why I like rowing.
Well, I just thought getting up at 4 a.m.
But if you're passionate
cold.
about something,
nothing, and then you're going in the water.
But she can't swim.
and wait when you fall in that dirty water.
But and see how she never told him she can't swim till she almost drowned.
Yes.
So it took her almost drowning for her to say that, because she somewhere deep inside of her she's like, I should know how to swim, but it's just
But
not
it's not
something
sport
that
you
was
learn unless
important.
parents
He
teach
could
you.
have. She could have got out of it maybe if she would have told him from the
Yeah,
start.
I'm sure
No, he
she
would have
could've.
signed her up
He
for
would've
swimming
made her
lessons.
learn
He would have
to
gotten her.
swim, yeah.
But
Oh, well, you're
because
gonna
He
learn to
wants the
swim.
best for her.
Why do you guys think that they work? Why did they work? Like, what was this chemistry?
Well, the passion.
Because they look in the same direction, like they
Yes,
work really well
yes.
together. They look in, and that's any successful relationship. You have to look in the same direction.
Yes.
And he was open to her teaching him stuff like, why should I, have your last name? Why should I have, you should get credit for my discoveries or whatever. And I think he took her to heart. He actually listened to her, not like the other men in her
Because he had
life.
so much
He
respect
saw her as an
for
equal?
Yeah.
Yes.
her
But didn't he
intelligence
teach
too.
her to use him, to use the system? And
He
to,
wanted
instead
to,
of-
wanted
but
her
she
to, but
wouldn't.
yeah,
Yeah,
she
she
didn't.
wouldn't. She didn't want to do anything
Yeah.
connected to him because she never wanted it to come back as if it was because of
But
him.
they did
Yes.
it anyway. People look at them anyway. Oh, she's
Yeah,
with him
I-
because he's famous. She's with him.
That's
because...
Yeah,
I
that's
think
how
that's
it
just
sounded.
perception, but she at least knew that it had nothing to
But
do
was
with
she
him.
smart to do that, or should have taken?
Well, and
advantage?
that's a good
Well,
question.
she was honest to do that.
Yeah.
She was
That's
honest.
Being honest
She
always the
couldn't.
smartest
She
thing to
couldn't
do.
be smart. She just had to be honest.
And are some of her views, like even when he loves her so much, I guess the other question I had is, do you think it would have lasted because of how he seemed to be willing to kind of bend to her and accommodate her, but she didn't seem
Well,
as
she did.
bending.
She went to row with him,
True,
But she would have-
but
she would have been
she
very-
found she liked it.
but she did it for a while before she found she liked it.
Okay.
But he would have been very happy too that she was pregnant, no? Right? 'Cause
Yeah.
He
the child-
would have. He would
But
have.
you can never
But she
tell when a
also
relationship works
she
or not.
also kept the baby despite not wanting to have kids.
But
That's
she
true.
loved him, so that was a,
Well,
a
right,
little bit
but
of
see,
him she had left.
that's where she was willing to bend too. So I think that they would have been a really old nerdy couple.
Really
Yes.
old odd couple.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
With their odd children
They would have,
and their odd dog.
in advance for their time.
Like
too.
they would travel a lot and they'd visit like nuclear reactors in you know,
So that's
Japan.
So then why do you think the author chose to kill him off?
Oh, maybe
Because I know I wrote something there. Because to show women they can do it alone.
Ah, true.
Anybody else?
Well, it did really help jump the story because she had to take.
It's boring
Carry
if
herself
everybody's
in
happy
another-
and it
that's what I said. Is like the story is about her. So if he had been there through it all, if the story would have evolved with them together, living this life together, it would have never solidified her identity, her need to identify herself in the world.
She would never have went to work on that show.
Well, and
yeah,
also,
she wouldn't have had to.
Elizabeth's struggle can't be saved by Prince Charming. Like there can't be a hero. It's already the book itself still has to comply with certain story norms.
Okay.
Like she's extraordinarily beautiful. He is also very handsome. He's tall and handsome, and he's built because of the rowing. And then on top of that, they're really smart. Like it's just they're like really perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, and I know that
That's
that's
annoying when things are perfect.
I know.
Even
it's
though they say that
destroying
he's
it.
not
It's a
handsome.
blessing.
Yeah, they said he was not attractive,
They say he wasn't particularly
I
attractive,
saw
but to
for some
her he
time.
was.
and he had like some
because when you're beautiful, you not take it.
aura
you take at
about
face
him or
value. You
something
don't
that
think he's
people were
smart.
attracted to.
How hard was it for
That
you?
confidence, yeah.
So we ultimately think that they would have lasted, but the reason he had to die off was so that she could basically evolve, or what's the word I'm looking for? Define herself. So
I was
go
going to
ahead.
say though, I think they also work because they don't comply with standard or accepted norms.
Yeah.
But they
Okay.
were in
You know?
advance for their time. Like the life they led is a life like men and women led in France in the 90s. I don't know about this country, but so many people don't get married over there because it's outdated and it was such a Catholic country and they rebel against it. So anything will relate to contract marriage, they're against it.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't aware of
yeah.
that in France.
People thought I was crazy to get married so young. But that's what I thought was interesting, is that they had the relationship so ahead of their time. I mean, I wasn't in this country in the 50s, obviously.
Right.
Yeah,
50s and
it was
60s.
definitely not
Yes.
looked
Yeah.
okay upon.
No,
I
it
mean,
was
as
not
we know
okay.
throughout the book, she's constantly criticized for, oh, you didn't get married,
and
oh,
look
the
at the
baby's
fact-
out of wedlock, and all these different
Illegitimate
things.
child, all that. Look at
Yeah.
all that. So that was interesting. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
but didn't you love that her whole the discussion when they were going to fire her? What's his name?
Delani.
Oh my god, his is the name I didn't write down.
I think when I heard
Yeah.
his name, I would say Dr. Dipshit. It was like
Who is that?
the head of the lab,
of the
yeah.
Hastings
the
lab.
Hastings lab.
Another question I wanted to throw in here is, what was the point of the dog's point of view?
Even their dog was on the spectrum. he was also special. He was ugly, but he was special, and he was really,
But
really
why
smart.
why would they say he was ugly when they're so beautiful? Do you think that was interesting? Why didn't they make them ugly or ugly by
Because
design?
that makes him. I think it stands out what a deep connection there was with his dog. The mangy looking dog just started following this beautiful woman, and she was teaching him.
And very environmental. The dog didn't work out in the environment he's supposed to be, but yet when he went into the family, he was a treasure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But do you think the author caved into making the protagonist beautiful because that's what society expects? When are we going to have protagonists that are ugly and stupid and all that?
I mean, that's a good point. If she had been an average-looking
Yeah.
person and not
Why did she
extraordinary
make her
beautiful,
Why did she make her beautiful?
That's a
Or
good
extraordinarily smart either.
Yeah.
Because Calvin fell for her basically because she was so smart.
Yes,
And
and
if she-
beautiful.
and that didn't
Yeah.
But
hurt.
they
Yeah.
didn't, neither of them wanted to get involved with the other person. That was kind of interesting.
But
to
he
think.
wouldn't have even been interested in her if she wouldn't have been like intellectually as
Yeah.
stimulating. So she
Yeah.
could have been less beautiful, but that was just a part of the discrimination, I think.
Well,
But
it's
that's
like when
also-
he thought that she was a secretary at first.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, he was an ass to her, and
You apologized profusely. after.
yes, because but I'm sure he came across many beautiful secretaries,
And he wasn't interested in
and
them.
he
Be-
wouldn't have thought.
And it's the environment and the times. That's how men would think. About
Yeah, but
beautiful
definitely he
women
was
or
interested in the
attractive
intellectual part more than he was the beauty part.
But I think when we write, it's like beautiful women, they don't have to be smart because they're already beautiful. And we all know that beauty doesn't last. So if you don't develop your brain, at the end, there is nothing. But also some women who are very smart and beautiful, they're not taken seriously because they're so pretty. I used to tutor a kid in France, and she was this beautiful girl, and she had brothers. And I was tutoring in math, and the mother said that the teacher told her, she doesn't need to make effort, she's beautiful anyway. And it made the mom furious, so she made sure I tutor her in math and physics, so she was, because she doesn't have to do anything, she's already beautiful. Can you imagine?
Well, that goes back to the Mexican Gothic book when we
Oh,
read,
yeah.
where the mom was trying to get her daughter to just be
Yeah, you
content
don't
with
need to do-
marrying rich. Just be rich. Why are you trying to be
Don't go to
educated?
college.
Yeah.
You really should be the
Yeah.
rich man, not marry the rich
And
man.
it's the same time frame, even though it's a different country. So, I mean, it's just, I think, a product of those
But
times.
it's also
It
the
is,
Catholic.
certainly.
It's also
Yeah.
very
Same.
much a Catholic religion because France was that,
Yeah.
and it was in a Catholic high school, and the mom was furious because the kid was, yes, she was beautiful, but she was smart. She just was never challenged if she didn't have a mother who put her foot down and say, no, my kid is going to be smart
Yes.
too. Oh,
Going back to 6:30, the dog. Do you think the story would have read well even without his monologue?
It was slow at first, and so
Okay.
when they introduced him, it was a little bit like more entertaining.
Okay.
So that was like the only purpose I saw for him is and also he acted as like her companion when she lost Calvin because she might have had not been
Emotional
able
support.
to. Yeah, he was when she was pregnant, and
And that's what the
when she had
doctor
the
said,
baby.
right? The
Yeah,
doctor.
so I
forget his
slept
name.
through the whole thing. I
Doctor
fell asleep.
Mason.
So
Yeah, I liked the dog.
I feel like it added value to the story.
Okay.
Because you're getting the dog's perspective, and it's just as cut and dry, like straight to the point as Elizabeth's. Like
Okay.
when Calvin dies, and he's like, you know, humans are weird. They spend all this time getting rid of dirt, and then they go and bury themselves 6
In the
feet
dirt, yeah.
in under 6 feet of dirt or something like that.
He-
We're fighting where we end up anyway. There's no logic in that.
So why fight really? Why don't you just surrender?
No, but this is the dog's perspective.
This
like
is
in
the dog talking,
Yeah.
and he even talks about how humans don't listen to one another. Like when I think there was a section where he monologues about the fact that they tell you to listen, but they themselves don't listen.
Yeah, I think the author used the dog to just note some societal things. Like she had him talking about, kids drawing pictures to show their parents. I'm like, he hasn't even been around kids. So it felt like a little bit of a stretch. Like she's talking about using chalk because that's how he would see kids drawing. And then when the baby was born, he was like trying to give the baby chalk right away.
But what the question that you put, Chantal, is the push, nurture versus nature.
Yeah. So my question is on that one is 630's. So do you think the 630's intelligence and later her daughter Mad's intelligence is due to Elizabeth pushing them, so nurture, versus their nature? So
You mean genetic?
in the versus genetic.
think
So
it's both.
in the book,
too.
in the story, she reads to the dog. She's literally teaching the word dogs as if it was her child before she even has her child. And then she treats her child the same way as she treated the dog as far as academic education is concerned. Like she's got it in her head that her dog can be as smart as a person.
And the
So-
dog chose her. So maybe the dog chose her because he felt that intelligence and caring and that.
I think it was more just the dog.
Because she's so beautiful.
She was so beautiful. Because when he first, I mean, she's literally just walking by him, and then it's just a dog, and
But
she
the dog chose
calls out
him.
to him. That's true.
But also they said in the book that 630 wasn't an ordinary dog.
Yes.
Like
yes.
to say he's extra exceptional, but so he came that way.
He came that way.
why
So it's his nature.
Part of it's his nature.
It's part of his nature, even though the
Maybe
bomb.
it was a trial child before she had the child.
Well, yeah, I think that's what most pets are considered, right? When you're a couple and you get a pet, your pet's supposed to be your first child to see if you can handle humans in practice. But so, as a society, do you think that we view nurture over nature?
For me, I think it goes together. Like genetic is very important, but it would be hard to do an experience with identical twin, and then one is left to be raised by a wolf, and the other one has all the. You wouldn't do that because it's a human being, but I'm sure people did. But I think it's a combination of both.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would think that too.
What do you
Yeah.
think?
But do you think as a society, like if I think about educationally, I don't feel as a mother that there's a lot of nurture. Well, there's a lot of push, but it's not necessarily caring push, right? Because we expect our children to learn certain things by a certain age, pass certain tests, and meet certain levels by a certain age. So that's a lot of push, and there's a lot of children who might struggle.
But that's where you want to listen.
I'm talking about society, though,
in
in general, the way the education system, from my point of view, because I'm not in the educational field like you guys are, my experience has been that it's a lot of push in the sense of you need to know this, you need to know this, you need to know this, and you need to meet these expectations. And if you don't...
Well, it's very much a greater good basis
Okay.
in education. Like they develop curriculum for the greater good, like for the average student. Really.
Uh-huh.
I mean, they're trying to bring in more tools from the special ed sector. I know that people can look at it in retrospect and with nostalgia that, well, when the way I learned it, it was easy. Well, it was just one way, and maybe it was that way appealed to you or worked for you.
Mm-hmm.
But how many of your classmates, that you thought, oh, he, Johnny's such a meathead, he's dumb in math. Was he dumb in math, or was the one way that worked for you
Didn't work for
not work for him?
Yeah.
And so he was set up, he was not supported.
Yeah.
So it gets generalized. And it's also very, it can fall on convenience. If it's convenient to blame the environment, then we have to look at the environment as well. We are also products of our environment and our nurturing, and, we're in different
We need the
areas.
comparison without it.
Yeah.
Do you feel as educators that our educational system currently is more nurturing than it was?
It's more
Yes.
nurturing
Yeah.
than France.
Yeah,
Tell
it's
France is
super
like
soft.
The highway, it's this way or the highway. Gosh, when I came here, I'm like, oh, they actually want you to succeed here. In France, it's really brutal, the education system. They say, oh, it's so wonderful. No, it's not, because it's really much based on if your parents have enough money for this and that, the tools.
Well, I think that's not just
It's everywhere.
I think it's in
Yeah.
any other country,
But I
because my
felt
husband
here-
grew up in Mexico and
Yeah,
it was the
but I
same.
felt when I came here and went to college after doing a bachelor in France, I came here and I was like, oh my gosh, we have a book, and then we have a book of exercise to learn. Oh, this is really nice. And then they want you to succeed. In France, because it's cheap, you have too many people in college, and so they eliminate by making it really hard, like very poor lessons and things. When here, yes, you have to pay, but you also get what you paid for, in that the support, the tutoring, the teachers are approachable. Here and I don't know, I teach 25 plus, so adults but I remember in France, especially in science, if you don't have a good teacher, it's so easy you skip a couple months, you skip a step in mathematics, and you're completely lost, and the rest of your career
I think
is
that's
over.
still the same.
Yeah.
Like, my son is not doing well in chemistry, and it's just his teacher. He just doesn't understand the way his teacher's teaching.
The parents, you can help and assist if it's in literature or things. If you teach your child how to read well, he's gonna do or she well everywhere. I was surprised when I was helping at my kid elementary school, and because we read so much to her and everything, I help other children read, and I would sit with them, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're like 2-3 years behind. And I say, how are they going to do it? Because the rest you can learn, but if you don't know how to read properly, they're always going to feel like they're catching up.
Yeah.
And it's sad. And that's, who knows, the parents might have too many children or just work so much they can't spend the time. And you guys see, because you work with little kids.
That comes with nature too, though, because there's some little kids out there, like her daughter, possibly Mads. She's like a high school level, college level reader at the age of 4.
Yeah, but
you can't teach that.
Yes, you can.
You can teach a 4-year-old to read college level material.
Well, I'm on college level, but your sister had a daughter the same age, and she knew how to read at 4. And me, I read to her, but I didn't spend the time to teach her how to read.
Yeah, I knew how to read at 4 also, but that was my nature. I loved reading. Like my parents
I don't think
never.
She taught her, like,
I
was
think
it
she
like,
just read to her.
hey, that, like the way we teach?
No, but
Yeah.
she would approach. No, it's not.
exposed
She was
her.
in preschool.
Yeah, she was exposed.
She was
Yeah.
in preschool, exposed to, and my kid is an
constantly.
amazing reader. She wants to write. She writes beautiful story. But I let it progress more naturally. Like I didn't push because I trusted the system and I was too busy. But
And then that's where nature comes in, though. That's more of the question. Is the push important?
what I meant is that it's.
Versus a child's innate desire to do something or learn something.
But I think every child is like, there is places in England where they don't teach children any plan until they're 11. I forgot that method, but they have them be in nature, do their
yeah,
own
the
regular.
Waldorf,
Yes,
the Waldorf
Waldorf
method.
and-
It's also in Scandinavia.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because when they're ready to learn, then they learn much quicker from 11 to
Yeah.
14 than they would if you. But I think some children love that, and it's so nature.
That's nature.
You want to teach things, you involve movements, you involve different things, so you can capture all the students.
But most
attention.
teachers don't know.
But this is the way
more
to.
than
But this
one
is so
way.
important. When you have a few students, it's good. But when you have 35 kids,
Yeah.
Well, and when you're teaching an hour lecture or 8 hours every damn
Exactly.
day, it's like,
You burn out.
you try to
no, I was teaching
kinesthetic
6
and-
hours in a row, 2 times a week. That I wish education was more like encompassing a lot more.
Which is why I guess so many parents decide to homeschool because
Yeah, but
they
I
feel
don't-
that one-on-one, and it's not for everybody. Of course, I'm trying it, and it's hard to do when you're trying to also work. It's definitely something you have to have a good amount of focus
Yeah.
on your child to give them the best experience of
and they will
homeschooling.
always do much better. If you want academically, they do much better because they get more one-on-one.
The one-on-one.
But the thing is, I feel that a lot of parents do it, and I don't know why you do it or what the reason, but I feel they do it so the kid don't get exposed to bad influence. Well, me, I feel like my kids need to learn the word as soon as she can, and that it's unfair sometimes and all this. And if I had the 12 kids I wanted, I would have loved to homeschool. I just felt like, I don't know, it would be wasting time to homeschool one kid when I could be working and, I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I mean? Like you have more kids.
Homeschooling 12 kids, you would have ended up on the news.
Yeah.
But they would not all be the
She'd
same
have her
age.
own school.
Angry French lady beats the shit out of her kids, trying to teach them to read.
They would not be the same age. That's
But
what you have to understand.
I mean, the bottom line of the
Well,
question
no,
is
no.
is whether nature in our society, you know, just like she pushes her kids, Elizabeth pushes her kids too, or her dog and her daughter to learn at a very early age, and they absorb it and they understand it, and they're able to grasp it.
You raise your kid the way you wish you were raised, so she was able to give that to them, that attention that she didn't
Yeah,
get as a.
probably.
as
It
a
probably
daughter of
has to do with
crazy
the fact
people.
that she was raised the way she was, and she wanted to give her daughter the best opportunity. Like she doesn't believe in limits. I wrote down. I think
Yes.
it's on your. I don't know if it's on your paper
And
where it
I
says
think
Elizabeth simply refused to accept limits, not just for herself
Yeah.
but for others.
But
So
having children for people, it's a way to redo your childhood too. think
I
that's
never
very
looked
true.
at it that way for myself. I do look at my last child as my social experiment, though. So by homeschooling her, it's something I always wanted to do with my other 3 children, but I didn't have the time to do. I didn't make the time to do it, and so by homeschooling
So
her.
let's watch in 20 years how
It's-
they turn out.
Well, she's already ahead of the others, so
But what
she's
is
already
ahead? What's that
reading.
mean ahead, like ahead academically.
Yeah, academically,
But
she's
also
ahead.
she has all the siblings. Like when you
Yeah,
have an only
she's-
child,
she's-
if you homeschool them, then the
That's
poor
different.
kid is always
That's
around
different.
30.
Like my brother has his daughter, and they're homeschooling her as well. She just got a baby brother, and she's already 6, or she'll be 6 this year. So she's been an only child for these years, and she's been getting homeschooled. So it's been a big adjustment for her.
You know, again, if I had had a lot of children, I think I would have had a mini school and making, because you can do so much when you homeschool. You can take them.
I've met a lot of homeschool
Yeah.
parents, and they're always traveling.
But-
They've got RVs, and they're
That's
out
great
camping, and their
experience.
kids are learning on the road. And I'm like, I want to do that. I don't want.
But I think it depends of the,
But the reality
district
is,
you're in.
I
It
gotta
depends
work.
of the school. It depends on so much for you.
Yeah, in the end, but nurture the nature and the nurture of
So
the
what do you
children
think
has a
here?
lot to do. It has to do with both. You can push your kids, but you can only push them so much. Like
Until they break.
we in my household, my 15-year-old, my husband has been trying to push him into sports forever. The only sport he loves is lacrosse. But we're not doing lacrosse. He hasn't done lacrosse and jiu-jitsu. We're not doing either of those sports right now. Just financially, it's extremely expensive. Because then he doesn't only want to do it, all the others want to do it too. But we have a piano, we have guitars, we have bass, and now we have a drum set.
And that's what he loved. Music,
And
right?
he is teaching himself, and he's excelling
And
at
see,
it.
that's the thing, is that's a hard part as a parent to notice that.
But that's his nature.
Exactly.
So-
No, I completely hear you there.
Yeah, that's his nature, because
But you
my
can-
11-year-old
Yeah.
is not interested at all in any of it.
Well, and maybe part of his nature too is that it's his choice,
Yeah.
It's his choice. That's true. It's
like his
choice.
dad,
Yeah, his dad's choice was sports, and
but
was
not pushed.
Not
like
pushed.
like it was most meaningful when they're the ones pushing what they
but
want
wait-
to do.
when he was doing the lacrosse and the jiu-jitsu, he loved it because it was his choice
But
to do
maybe
it.
when he's 25 or when he has money, he might do it again. So,
Yeah.
you know, so
That's what I
think
told
the
him.
little
You can
seed
afford
that
it
you
yourself.
put in your kids,
You can go back to
eventually-
it. We'll buy you all the instruments you need in the meantime. But my point being that my 11-year-old, it's not his nature. No matter how much we've put him in jiu-jitsu, we put him
Yeah.
in boxing.
It's not
So we
interested.
pushed him to do all these different sports. They did both like fencing for a minute.
You pick expensive
Yeah,
this is
I
something
know.
Right? That's an aristocratic sport.
They are currently enrolled for soccer and flag football for the
And now
summer.
we're talking more,
We'll see. Well, because that's what's available at the schools. But again, it's not my 11-year-old's nature. But give him a computer and ask him to code you something. That is in his nature. Like he's very interested in that now,
it's
and
really
that's
nice-
nothing to do with us because we're not
But
computer
it's nice
savvy
when
at all.
you see your kid flourishing in something they choose. You know, as much as it could be different than what you understand, it's
Yeah.
really nice.
Oh yeah,
because,
I just
you know,
can't help him with it. Like I can't
But
help my
that's
son
okay.
with chemistry, and I can't help.
Yeah, same. They would come, Mama, I'm not understanding this. I'm like, okay, this is the
like Google.
extent of my mathing.
Send it to me.
I cannot. Yeah, I'm gonna send her with a box of cookies.
I'm like, here, that's what you have Google for. You need to
Yeah.
log on and
No,
research
I used
that
to
yourself.
love teaching between 8 and 16, 17-year-old one-on-one, okay? Let's not talk about the classroom. But one-on-one, it was so cool because when you make it fun and interesting, they just flourish and then they come back with good grades and they're happy. It's
Yeah.
nice.
Well, that's ideal in the classroom too.
Yeah.
You know, with
Yeah,
the
but
bunch, but it's a
You,
lot.
and plus you have a classroom of 30, you have 1 or 2 disturber who wants your attention.
I have a class of 23, and I have like 5 just here.
And how old are they? And they're like 7?
6 and 7.
Yeah, so.
Mm-hmm.
But why? Why?
Or I want to go home already. Friend, me too.
But
That's-
the law makes me stay.
I thought about Elizabeth and Calvin being able to raise Mads together, and I think she still would have been the same child. It's almost like the roles are reversed. She's level-headed, you know. She's in the in-between world. She's not,
On the spectrum.
or I think she's center on the spectrum, and so she would have been able to navigate the world just fine, still being academically brilliant, and because that's
But she's more balanced because she got that nurture from her mother.
but it's the not having any limits that allowed for the dog and the girl
Yeah.
and the daughter to
find themselves.
This is one of the most important. My mom told me to say, like, study as much as you can, and there was no limit of what I could do. She lived in a fantasy world, obviously, because the reality slaps you in the face, but it opens the space. You told that you could do anything, and then when your parents stop doubting you, you're like, what are you talking about? You know, so I think that even if you can help them in certain, by creating that space for them and telling them, go for it, and that's how it seems like that's how she was.
And for that time frame, right? Because Harriet would be like, your daughter, you need to
Yeah.
pay more
What are you
attention
doing?
to her. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Your daughter needs more attention. So yeah, she's fine.
But I was raised like, oh, sure, whatever, and then you take things hard. I mean, you need. That's a hard thing about raising kids is you have to move from, you protect them a lot, and they need more independence, and
Yeah.
after a point you say, well, I did everything I could.
Yeah.
Now I feel like
Now you're on your own.
Well, not on your own, but like you can't worry all the time because you know like you give them the guidance and it stays in their mind, and they listen to us more than we think too.
Yeah.
The kids.
Okay, let's go on to the next question. Okay, why do you think that the TV show, as she becomes this chemist on TV with cooking, why do you think it resonated so much with women, her viewers?
Well, because it was fresh. It was, you have the June Cleavers coming out, and they're the model, lady and managing the home until Mr. Cleaver comes home. So even though a lot of, I don't remember exactly what they said, but it was something to the effect of, she was stiff, she didn't smile, and yet people tuned in. They find her quirky, but they're still drawn to her. And I think it was just because she was providing the information as information. It was a teaching opportunity, and for the viewers, it was a learning opportunity. It's teaching that made sense. So
Practical.
it was practical. There you go.
But she also, from the first episode, was like, women are so important. This job is so important. Being a mother is so important. Being a wife and cooking dinner is so important. And so it like gave them more
Place
value. Yeah. She valued them from the beginning. And I think that probably started.
Well, in
with-
her sign off, children set the table. Your mother needs some time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Needs a minute to herself.
And she's genuine with like those June Cleavers. Like you can see it on, like the Daily Show or whatever morning show. You could see that they're just like faking it and smiling. And
You make me think of Julia Child, was very awkward and everything. She dropped something on the floor, oh, pick it up and all it.
Yeah.
And because I think, because they go in the culinary thing, so home cooking, which is also Julia Child was very involved with cooking, but things was acceptable, so men don't look at it so much, and she managed to put some lesson in science in it. So I think that's why it was popular.
But the show manager was a jerk, right?
Oh, yeah.
Another misogynist,
Was it Walter? Yeah.
No, not Walter. That's her producer.
Okay.
But he's like
The manager.
the director of the whole studio.
Yeah. No, not her producer. Walter's.
Yeah.
He's a different.
Walter is also the dad of Mad's classmate.
Yes, that keeps eating her
the
lunch.
lunch, yeah.
What's her name, the little girl?
Amanda.
Amanda. And he comes to share that he's not Amanda's dad,
Yes.
biological dad.
And like he comes across as this pushover.
Well, sad to say, even the fact that he's taking care of another man's child, like
Yes.
that.
And his wife left him.
and his wife
like
left him,
the mom
yeah.
left her daughter with him.
And when he was like nervous about his director because Elizabeth wasn't following the rules, he's like closing his eyes and like
He's all,
disassociating.
Go to my happy place.
Yeah. If we go to Walter, for the personality that he has, like this kind of like not very strong, he doesn't really stand up for himself. Kind of feels like he doesn't have much of a spine, other than he just does what he needs to do to get by. And we understand that his ex-wife left him with her daughter from her previous marriage for him to raise on his own. So then why does Harriet fall for him?
Well, she hates her own husband, who's the opposite of all those things.
Yeah, he's abusive, an abusive husband, and she feels that she's stuck in that marriage.
Did they have kids?
Yeah, they have
They
quite a
had-
few, but
Okay,
they
but they're all grown.
and
yeah,
they're all
they-
grown and gone.
got away
and they
from-
have kids of their own, but they never come to see
They
them.
never come visit. So she's by herself, which is why, she wants to help Elizabeth help raise Mads in the end. She's her opportunity to be a grandma, I guess, and be
al-
useful.
Well, also because I've been having discussions with my daughters about, our support systems, and she doesn't have a support system. Like
Yeah.
the fact that her kids don't come back and visit, they probably hate the dad, and also probably resent her for
Staying with him.
staying with him and giving them that type of dad.
But she also talks about the fact that they're Catholic and she can't leave him, right? It's just not done.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, I understand now, but back then,
And
if
it
you
is, yeah,
talk
that's what I was
about
gonna say, it's
the
the
time in which
period of
this is
time.
happening, it's just you just stay
Well, and she did start to get paid by Elizabeth, and that was her first time
working.
getting paid
Yeah.
to
Yes,
work.
independent.
So that helped her feel like
So
confidence.
when Walter comes into the picture, we know for Elizabeth, he's this producer and he's, having her on the show and he's being very supportive. And then Harriet falls for him and is now interested in him and they end up hooking up at the end. They end up getting
that was
together.
weird.
It was weird.
was right.
It was
Well,
right, but
but
it was
in the
I
beginning-
I was
okay.
fearing at first that Walter was looking at Elizabeth like,
But he kept saying how it was his best friend, and never really seemed like he was interested in her like that. But I thought it was funny how Harriet kept talking about how she always wanted to be in love, and I'm like, who cares now? She's like an old lady.
Yeah.
Like, why is she worried about falling in love? But then when they said Walter was 55, I was like, I saw that coming.
Yeah.
He was old too to be that little girl's dad.
Well, and that's why he was taking care of her, right? It's not. This is his personality, right? This pushover guy, and it maybe wasn't so common back then, but we see a lot of guys like that now. And then my question was like, can you relate your own husbands to any of these characters?
I felt that I could see in a lot of Calvin,
Okay.
in a time when he was better. But then it's weird, like when he has his moments or his episodes, he's not in control of them. So it's not like he's doing them on purpose,
Yeah.
but this little machista tinge comes out,
Okay.
and before I came to terms with how involuntary it is, I was.
It was a problem.
It was a problem, yeah, because I'm not having it. I didn't deal with that before, or maybe I just didn't see it. It didn't come out as much. And now you're gonna, I thought I had like a feminist husband, because he himself has said it,
Okay.
and I see it in the way he has always supported like his students when he started off, and he started teaching in Coachella, so he had angry dads coming and wanting to confront him because how dare he tell their daughters that already have some chicken hawk boyfriend that's like 25 in 8th grade, that they're set to get married. Like that's their lot in life.
Yeah.
And my husband is telling them that they can go to college, and that they're
How dare he fill their heads with ideas?
and so, and just how he handled the physical abuse going on between his parents and how he tried to support his mom and how frustrated he would get that she would say things like, if I had known how hard it was to be on my own, I would have just taken the beatings, like things like that. It infuriated him. So then there's things going on in the brain that are brewing. And now he's blatantly ignoring what I say and then hearing another man say the exact same thing and be like, oh, okay, that's all right. And I just...
I think that just comes with age.
Well,
because
but
my
it's-
husband doesn't.
Bullshit. Something else came to mind, but I guess I lost my train of thought.
Okay. Well, for me, I would say my husband reminds me a lot of Calvin as far as like the opinionated, say what you are thinking and not really care what anybody else thinks about you. Like that aspect of my husband is very blatant, but he's also a big joker and he comes across as machista. And I know him, and I was like, if he was really machismo, I wouldn't be having to work. I could stay home with my kids. That's how I look at it. It's like, if he was really machismo, I wouldn't be working.
So is it a facade that he puts on because it's expected?
I think so, because
Yeah.
that's what he was raised with.
Yeah.
He was raised with a father who was very much like that. Had like 2-3 girlfriends or whatever on the side at all times. So he saw how that affected his stepmom, how it affected his mother, and he chooses to not be that way, but it doesn't keep him from joking about it.
Yeah.
So,
It's one of those, like, you're lucky you're funny.
Yes, exactly, exactly. So, but yeah, it's I would relate him to Calvin as far as the outspokenness and I don't care what anybody else thinks, but definitely not like a Walter at all. So,
Yeah.
like, he's supportive. He can be supportive. Like, he's super supportive of our daughters. Like, they can be whatever they want. But
Yeah, I'd say my husband, I've seen him do things like that remind me of Calvin, but he doesn't remind me of Calvin or Walter, really.
he's just himself.
Just somewhere, some other path.
I guess these guys are. There's a lot of like.
Yeah, they're very
they're
extreme.
very extreme, right?
Yeah.
These
Yeah.
characters are very
Yeah.
extreme, and so I'm sure the average husband falls somewhere in between, not one or the other. So, all right. Okay, let's see. We talked about Harriet, and did they understand she was a chemist, or did they just think that she was just
I
intelligent?
think she told them,
Okay.
but I think they just like appreciated being spoken to, like they were intelligent, so
Okay.
maybe it was like encouraging. Plus, what she made was like supposed to be really good.
Yeah.
And then she did things like have them have recipe the day before so they could do it with her.
Mm-hmm.
So that was pretty like new age, I thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
I spoke with Cindy's aunt, and Cindy's nana would have really appreciated her show because she typified a mother in those days and would have dinner ready, and it was always Betty Crocker that she used, and she always had Manhattan ready for her husband when he came home. And to have somebody like Elizabeth on the TV to sort of give her a little bit more inspiration and to see how strong women could be, I think it would have been wonderful for her.
And that they could make their own damn drink.
And I don't.
Sorry?
And
that
that they could make their own damn
Yeah.
drink.
And I think about my grandma, because my grandmother, my dad was born during this time, and I think about my grandma and how she was with my grandfather during these years. And my grandmother, the moment my grandpa could get home at midnight, and she would get up to make him dinner. And if there wasn't something available, she'd go find a store that was open to get him whatever he wanted. It's just the way she was with him, and what he expected of her.
And what would she have thought of Elizabeth?
I'm sorry.
What was she
I don't
have
think she
thought
would
of-
have liked her.
Oh,
She would not have liked her because she was my grandmother. It was funny because my grandma told me stories about herself when she was younger, and all her adventures that she did and mishaps that she had. Like she tried to be a hairdresser at some point, and she burned a lady's hair, a perm that she did on her first one, and she got so embarrassed she never went back to the salon again. And she told me about
Hey,
some,
mistakes are
I know, but this
proof that we're trying.
I
that
know,
we're
but
learning.
but she was super embarrassed, and she just never. I think she was like 16 when this happened, and so, but she was very Catholic, like Orthodox Roman Catholic. Like there's no like your husband is your world, your children are your world, and that's it. Like there's nothing else above them, type of thing, other than your God. And so, like I said, my grandfather, she would not have liked Elizabeth Zott.
see, Cindy's nana would have was the same. She was a Catholic, and I remember asking her, did she ever want a career? And she said no. All her life, she'd wanted children, and that's what she wanted.
Yeah.
And
That was her
I guess
career.
it's the environment that they were raised in. But I still think because she was an intelligent woman, that she would have enjoyed Elizabeth. I think.
Yeah, she was
Do
an
you think
avid
so?
reader. I
Yeah.
think she would have even liked her talking in chemistry terms, like how Elizabeth did.
Enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. I
yes,
think she'd
yes.
try it later,
Yes,
maybe.
I think so.
The fact that then she says, like Elizabeth says that she's an atheist. My grandma would have been one of those people. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm not listening to her.
Yeah, my-
She's an
mine
atheist.
Anna
Yeah,
wouldn't
Nana
like
wouldn't
that.
like that. But I do remember also that your Nana, and it was in the early 50s when she had her first child, She was working and they fired her as soon as they knew she was pregnant. So she was working at the time, probably for financial reasons. As soon as she became pregnant, she was fired.
That was common practice.
Yes, yes. And but she was very religious, and I don't think she would have enjoyed Elizabeth's.
Yeah,
thoughts
because
on
that's one of the things is that, you know,
Did she bring that up
she
in the
states
cooking show, though?
She told
Yeah.
everybody that
she
didn't
tells
believe.
everyone that she's an
Yeah,
atheist.
that might have
Yeah.
been a bit of taboo.
But don't you think she does it as a provocation because her parents abused the
I don't think it's a provocation. It's just part of her being very matter of fact. Just
Yeah.
like, just so you guys understand, I don't believe in God. Because I think somebody asked about.
Sort of. They
asked
said something
something.
about Jesus, and she was just like, "Well, I'm atheist."
Well, because for her, religion was associated with taking advantage of others.
Yes.
So,
Of
which is not
course.
the idea, basic, the true religion, whatever you believe, it's not about that.
Yeah. So she was, and again, someone does try to blow up the show because of her atheistic views. And
This is on in the book. I don't
it-
remember that.
in
Yeah.
the book, yeah, it
Okay.
doesn't happen on the TV show, but it does happen in the book where
6:30 found the bomb.
Oh, okay.
yeah, he finds the bomb and leaves it on the guard's desk, and they all praise the guard like he's the one who saved everybody, when it was really the
That
dog.
must have been the most surprising part to me in the book.
If we could
But
go back,
in the 50s for her to be brave enough to say she's an atheist.
Mm-hmm.
Because it seemed to me that atheism is worse to say that you're an atheist today, or maybe 10 years ago, to say you're an atheist, more so than if you were gay, actually, I think.
Back then,
Back
but
10
back
years
then
ago.
it would have
Back
been
then,
equally.
even worse.
Yeah.
In this
to
country,
say
you mean?
you're
In
an
this country?
atheist, yes.
Because in France, it's not. You can
no,
say whatever
but
you
50
want.
70 years ago, to say you're an atheist in this country.
Oh yeah, even
Yeah.
now,
Yeah,
in
well,
many
that's what I'm
circles.
saying. Even 10 years ago, if you were to say you were an atheist, it was worse than saying at that time that you were gay, or I think.
Yeah, possibly.
It still is
And
a
I-
little
and
bit questionable.
I have a
here
little
now.
note on here because I think historically women were expected to be the faith,
Yes.
the base of faith in a house. So if they had no faith, then they were raising heathens, right? So, and you wanted to go back to a point.
well, with Frask, you know, the whole conversation when Calvin first dies, or you know, she goes to pick up his things, and how nasty she was. I mean, I know that she comes around, but she was responsible for a lot of damage along the way.
Yes.
And I mean, because she spearheaded it, and that's very much why women even got the opportunity to vote, or the right to vote. It's still, I mean, as much as women fought for it, it was still given. Ultimately, men saw that women tended to vote in the same direction as their husbands. So they're like, all right, this, you know, it's
Well,
going
as far as they know.
But in
those times.
in those times,
Yes.
definitely. So for her to be the one perpetuating it, just reminded me, my grandma, when she was pregnant with my grandpa died very early. My dad was 5, and my grandma was pregnant with my youngest uncle. And she told me that where we're from, the nuns were doing classes like sewing classes and arts and crafts and stuff. And so some of the ladies that had started taking the classes were putting them to practice with selling little things and crocheting little doilies and to sell and, you know, making an income. So the nuns came around and to my great aunts, and my grandmother was now a widow with 3 children. And, you know, if you don't have a father, you're considered an orphan. So they asked my great aunt, you know, are you or anybody interested? She's like, well, I'm okay, but my sister's she picks up things quick. My grandma pretty much taught herself to read because they didn't send her to school. So she tells the nun, my great aunt tells the nun, the only thing is though, she's a widow and she has 3 orphan children. And my grandma, I was just like, that was a bad thing. Like that might prevent her from being a good candidate or a good student.
Good anything, right?
And so my grandma was, when she's telling me the story, she's like, what the hell was her problem? Like, why did she even have to say that?
Yeah.
And what did I have to do with it? I wasn't trying to have my husband killed. You know, I wasn't trying to have raise my kids without a father. Like, why was that? But my grandma did say, it's just how people were at the time.
Yeah.
You know, and as traditional as my grandmother was, she still recognized it was the times, but they weren't very smart.
Yeah.
So
She was still enlightened.
yeah, she was really.
But that's what you're saying is interesting because this week it's been 50 years that my husband's father passed away in a car accident. So his wife was pregnant with a 15 child. She was 47. She was 6 months pregnant. And now I understand what you're saying. She did not want to raise, she had 8 or 9 kids under 18. So she did not want to raise them without a father in Mexico. And now I understand why. Because they're considered orphans. So she moved everybody to Santa Barbara. And the one who were in college and everything, to Goleta up north, the one in college where a lot of them dropped college to help. So all the oldest, she already, like my husband was uncle 8 times before he was born. Because when you have children pregnant from 17 to 47 every 2 years, that's a lot of big gap in generation. And now I understand what you're saying, that
Because almost
you
don't
come to
mistreat
the-
your kids because they don't have a father. They still have a mother, but
Yeah.
the fact they don't have a father already makes you less.
But when you look, when I came in this country, I was always interested in the Mexican culture, and I look at there was more women or equivalent in Mexico in college as men already in the 90s when you look at it. So that's what is interesting in many ways. We know it's more patriarchal, but there is still a very strong matriarchal influence in Mexico. And my mother-in-law always told me that, like, she was so happy that I was married, that my son was married to me, because I would encourage him more. Because she said it's really the woman. Because growing without a father is hard for a guy, I think. But it gave her the direction. She said, we know women are the one who make the family. Like, and she didn't say much, and she spoke only in Spanish, even if she was born here. But it was interesting because she didn't say much, and she was very enlightened, and she never had to work until her husband died. And then when she moved to Santa Barbara, she became a waitress to be able. And if she didn't have that strong face in church and everything, they always had everything because she worked so hard. She educated all of her sons to be very respectful of women because they saw what she went through. And so when you talk about machismo before, the true machismo is like in France, for example. That was funny because when Frank came in France, when we were walking, he would walk on the side of the street. And we were talking with another friend who is actually a French gay man, and he said very much aristocrat, and he said that's the way they used to do, like men will protect women. That's the true machismo. And not disrespect them. On the contrary, they put women really, they know it's the center, they give birth, they have that life strength. So
You know why though? They used to fling the chamber pot out the window,
yes.
and so
and the women had those big dress, so
Yeah.
the streets were like this. So this way they didn't get wet as much.
Fun stuff.
yeah,
No, but it's interesting because what is true machismo and what is not,
Yeah.
The
Well, like the extreme right is the misogynists,
Yeah.
which is like a lot of these characters that were in the book. You could say were misogynist because they were extremely demeaning to women. Didn't feel that they had any place in men's world, right?
all of these are the most insecure. The worst cases in the book are the most insecure men.
yes.
The director of Hastings, he thinks
Denali?
Denali, that's his name.
Calvin was his adversary, his rival.
Yes.
But only his own, because Calvin wasn't even taking. He didn't give him two thoughts.
He didn't even
Yes.
know he
No,
was his
it
rival.
was just-
But
Because
the
he was
only
on the
reason he
spectrum.
kept him around was because of all the money that Calvin brought in. But like you're right, Calvin had no idea what the rivalry was. He didn't know it existed.
And then the professor at UCLA, an insecure man like him is going to defend his position because aside from this false sense of security, he's an arrogant man, but he has to be arrogant
more
because
arrogant is because they're the most insecure, so they have
And
to prove. So they
I think because
have.
when you're truly confident, you can go anywhere.
Yeah, you
can
don't
be like,
care.
okay, I can't do what I need to do
Yeah.
here. I can go to another university.
Yes.
But they hang on to.
Power trip.
It's very much a power trip because they're going to hang on to their positions.
because they know they're not good enough to go anywhere
Yeah.
else.
Because they might not be able
And-
to prove themselves somewhere
And
else.
and he couldn't be wrong against a woman. Right,
Yeah,
because
especially.
Elizabeth found an error in his test,
Yes.
and he had to teach her a lesson.
And let's be real. It's very hard to find an unqualified women in a position of power. So they usually overqualified for the position they're in. and it's much easier to find an unqualified man in a position of power than unqualified women.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are watching what they're doing, what she's doing,
Yes.
and she better not make any mistake. I mean,
Yeah, I
it's-
think that's like people of color too.
Oh yes, and
Like
you
you-
they consider minority, which is ridiculous because there is more women on the world than men. So if we just stop having kids and fight with.
But nurse salaries increased when more men ended up in the nursing field.
Yeah. Well, and in France, they're the first one who went in the street to manifest, the nurse, because they're most women dominated. I had to come here to see more male nurse. We don't see them as much over there. But they went in the street and we know that the core of the medical, they do pretty much everything. And so that's why they fought really hard. I had a few of my aunts who were nurses, and they were... it was one profession where they were able to have more opportunities. But
So, ultimately, what did you guys like about this book, and what didn't you like about this book?
I didn't like that it called out how it is. So it made me angry a lot.
it's kind of sad.
And I know that it's kind of hyperbolized because it's so many events or incidences concentrated in each chapter. But I mean,
Do you have a favorite
That's what it is.
incident? Like something that made you laugh or said like, that's awesome that happened?
well, the pencil stabbing and that was right up front.
Yeah,
So
that
that
was right up
Nikita,
front.
when she pushed a pencil in the French version of Nikita, the original, she pushed a pencil. You have to see the movie.
Okay,
It's
what you
awesome.
I did appreciate that she was so gun ho, like she's just gonna keep on trucking. Okay, this doesn't work. So, because I'm working through not being the opposite. I've placed so many limits on myself, not thinking that
It's
I
because you're
know
so
enough.
beautiful,
Well, it's
So you were expected just to be pretty.
I've been put in a trap.
But you are smart.
I've
you
been
know?
in a box. So, but thank you for understanding.
Do you see how easy it is to sidetrack women? See, we don't.
They're just emotional.
We're so emotional.
Earlier, I lost.
We human. No, me, I felt the same. I felt very sad reading it. First, I thought the cover was obnoxious, so I didn't want to read the book. And I have the book right there, and now I see it in a different way. But first, I'm like, who are they trying to attract with this cover? It's so bright
that's
and
true.
obnoxious, and
Very much.
I felt like, ugh. And then
And
I
they didn't
start,
have neon in the 50s.
and then I start reading it. And then listening to it, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's so true. It made me really sad to say that was the 50s, 60s, and not much has changed. And then it made me more and more interested as you went in, definitely, because I thought it's a great story. I want to read. Is that her first book, the author? Because I want to read more of her books.
No, it's funny that you talk about the covers because one of the articles I found, and I can't find it again right now, but they actually talk about all the different covers.
Oh.
So national, like
Yeah, I mean, it's
around the
beautiful when I say
world.
obnoxious,
So
it
around
just-
the world,
Yeah.
in every
Yeah, see?
different language, there's a different cover.
So it's very American.
So there is an article
Let me see.
that talks.
It's
There's
kind
more
of-
than
it's,
that.
It's so comical. It's such,
There's-
Yeah,
such a comical.
but
sort
even
of
the
thing.
title was kind of a turn off. I thought it was going to be all about their love, like a little romantic comedy.
Oh, I didn't think that at all. I said, oh, it's about chemistry? Ugh.
The scientist does.
Well, you can
But
see that.
see,
you
like
see
this,
that,
I would
and
have want
it's-
to read it more like this, or maybe
that's
even
more like
this,
Julia
more than
Child,
this.
See,
And,
Yes,
and
yes.
those are just 4 examples. There's like 10 different covers.
And this,
I
I
think.
would not have read it if I see cooking instruments. I'm like, sorry.
That looks like toilet cleaning.
Yeah, toilet
Yeah,
cleaning.
but-
It does, but I mean,
But
Where's
now,
got the gloves on?
now I'm like, oh, and then I see the thing of the
pencil.
pen, and
Yes.
it clicks in, and and I
The
was
pencil
reading.
made more sense.
Yeah, I didn't even
That's
notice
about
that
the only
before.
thing.
And then all les éprouvettes, I don't know how you say it in English, all the test stuff.
The test
Oh.
tubes and stuff.
Yeah.
Like on your
That was
little
like-
Well,
paper.
you know, I'm looking at it on my Audible picture, so it's small.
But
but still very
audible-
orange.
The audible version is very well read. The person who does it, I forgot the name, but you really get into it. Excellent job on
Look,
it.
that was another cover. It's a salad
Yeah.
with little.
No, and this one is probably better. But I would have liked more the Julia Child look like the second
Yeah.
one. you know, because she was amazing.
But I like the ones that show the TV set on there
Okay.
because that was a big.
Put it in a period.
What's that?
You put it in a period when you
well,
see
not
that.
well, more
in the
so
50s.
because it was a TV show that put her out
Made her. Mm-hmm.
into the mainstream,
Yes.
and so it was so valuable because it's not a Susie Homemaker show.
Mm-hmm.
She's approaching it through science,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and people are trying out the recipes and they enjoy it. And there's like the social emotional learning in there too, just addressing the needs of the women in the home.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that her on the television show, you have to be flexible when life just keeps throwing you curveballs, and she kept getting all
Yeah.
kinds of curveballs. I mean, her
It's
livelihood,
Great lessons. Great
her
lessons.
livelihood was disrupted because her partner died,
Yeah.
and although it shouldn't have, because she's a scientist,
Yeah.
and yet she was like,
She was devastated.
Yeah.
She lost it. And then she was doing it all alone.
And he was like her only friend. Remember, she
Yeah.
got invited to like a wedding, and he was like, "Oh, I didn't know you had any friends, Calvin." And it turned out it was just some secretary that she had worked with. That
And she had to sub. for
yeah,
someone.
Yeah.
someone who
Who
couldn't make it.
That was terrible.
But that was like
In an ugly dress.
how her relationships really were. Like Harriet was her first friend
Friend.
besides Calvin.
Calvin. Mhm.
Well, because in science, she's around men. It's not like she has a ton of women to be
Well, and
friends.
even they continued to utilize her for help, but they weren't her friends.
No, they were
but
just using her and they
nobody
were
would go
taking
to bat.
credit.
Yeah, nobody
Yeah.
would go up to bat for her.
Well, and I guess that can circle back to something we didn't talk about, I don't think, is Calvin's mom. So we learn at the end of the story, or towards the end of the story, that Calvin is an orphan and his mom is still alive. And so the Hastings, at some point in the story, Hastings receives an offer for funding for their biogenesis science. And it's from this foundation that funds science in general. It's also the same foundation that funded his orphanage when he was a little boy. But we learned that it was all under false pretense, that the funding was given to the church because the church told him, or the Monsignor or priest or whatever he was, told the mom's attorney that he had passed away. And so that was a big fat lie because he hadn't passed away. And this religious
Well, and he
figure.
was being lied to as well because he was told his mother died in childbirth.
Exactly. And she was originally told that her son was died in childbirth too. So she was lied to by the church.
But when was the church advantage to do that? Just to get the money from the foundation?
Yes. So she was lied to when he was
sick.
born, and then he was told his mom was dead, and that's why he was in the orphanage.
His mom and dad.
His mom and dad were dead. Then in a car accident, he had gone to live with an aunt, right, or something like that, and then he ended up in the orphanage. And then
Well, and actually, the ones that died in the car accident were the adoptive parents.
were the adopted parents, yes, not his actual parents. And then now he's in this orphanage, and his parents are dead, according to him, and that's what he understands. And this guy shows up with money, and he assumes that the attorney is his biological father, but it's not. And he dies hating this man. And the mom never comes out to meet him, even though she writes to him. Tells him he's the mom. He never believes it, but she never shows up.
Why do you think?
That's a great. In my head, I can
Shame.
only think of it as like shameful, some type of deep psychological fear of rejection. That she was just super afraid that he was going to hate her, and that she just couldn't face that. But I don't know. In my head, I'd rather face that than never have my child in my life. Like now that she knows he's alive. Why didn't she? And I even searched for this answer online. I couldn't find an answer to this question. So maybe there is no answer, but your thoughts.
I had written that the Times lended to her being. Oh no, I'm sorry. That was for Harriet. But the mom, she played the system. Like she navigated through the system instead of going against it.
His mom.
His mom,
Calvin.
yes, and that's why she went through the attorney, never showed herself, and I think she does. She tells Elizabeth at one point, doesn't she? Like, how would a laboratory show accepted this rich woman coming to donate money, they would have been like, no, thanks for your money, lady, but we'll do what we want with it.
Yeah.
But an attorney shows up and says, and they believe he's the
Donor.
millionaire, the wealthy donor. Because he's a man, they're going to be like, oh, yes, sir, thank you.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, but as a mother, even if it's not like, I understand her not going to Hastings to offer up the money. I get that because of the world that they lived in and how it would have been perceived. Because she even talks about how, she's a woman with money.
But did she want to keep him, or
she wanted to keep him? She was forced to give him away. That's why they told her that he was dead. But once she found out that he was still alive, why didn't she go to him? Like, why did she just stay in the shadows and fund him? Because it was all his stuff was funded by his mom. Like, she's the one. Her foundation is the one that.
So he didn't do it on his own, basically.
He technically didn't do it on his own, but he didn't know. He didn't know it was mommy's money.
Well, but he was someone's money for him.
But he didn't know. So he's a scientist, right? Scientists get funded,
enough.
right, for all their projects and things. So
Yeah, but not in this country. Maybe.
but he didn't know. He never knew that it was his mother. And when she did try to reach out, he didn't believe her because he had been told that she was
I'd like
dead.
to think that had he lived, she was getting closer.
Mm-hmm.
And then having a partner and child, I think would have
Soften him.
softened him. Yeah, it would have. And also because now she has more family.
Yeah.
Because she does reach out to Elizabeth.
She does. Well, no, because Mads finds her. So
Okay.
Mads finds her grandmother, and because of this whole report thing, where she's trying to figure out the orphanage thing with the pastor Wakely, and
That's the pen pal, right?
the pen pal. Yeah. So he helps Mads find her dad. Or her dad's orphanage, and then that leads to the foundation and
Into an actual living grandmother. So the connection is there. Mads finds her, but I feel I don't remember. Maybe I'm getting the TV show mixed up with the book. So I don't remember if the mom at some point in the book, when she's talking to Elizabeth, relates the fact that she's always known. Like, she's always been there. She just was afraid to come forward. And that's why she ends up buying Hastings and brings her back on board.
And how did the mom get all this money?
She inherited it. She comes from money. They're a wealthy family, and she was the sole heir, and she didn't have any other children, and she never got married. So it's all her money.
We should all have a wealthy heir.
Yes, who are we going to inherit from?
Well, I don't. So that's the thing.
You don't know, maybe.
No, I mean all my heirs.
Maybe. No, but all your ancestors. Maybe there is someone out of the woodwork that's going to come out.
We've been a broke bunch.
Corina, you need to service.
Well, ladies, is there anything you want to revisit? You think we're
What
good?
do you think he got he was on the New York Times notable book of the year?
I don't
Who do
honestly
you think
know.
reads this book?
Women,
Only women?
probably. It's written for women because it's empowering for women. I mean,
Yes, the empowerment.
yeah, it's the same reason why women would have been her viewers, right? She was empowering them in some way. So
And what's the story of the author? Have you?
I don't know about her other than
You know what
was on
motivated
the-
her from writing a book like that? Be interesting.
yeah, because I think we were discussing earlier how she herself wasn't a chemist. She just got a chemistry book and started pulling out information. I think she also talks about how she took some it was her mom's time.
See, what they say is a copywriter and creative director who has worked widely in the field of technology, medicine, and education. She's an open water swimmer, a rower,
Oh, she was a rower. Yes, I
And
do
mother
remember.
of two.
I do remember that she was a rower.
pretty amazing daughter, born in California and most recently from Seattle. She currently lives in London with a husband and a dog, 99. Not
So,
69.
yes,
60.
they do. I think at the end of the Audible that she talks about rowing in there. So
Yeah, she has a nice face.
yeah,
She probably was very pretty. Still is pretty, so she suffered discrimination for
Yeah. Well, I would say one thing that my husband always, whenever we're watching movies, because we watch a lot of movies together, and he'll say, something comes out, and he'll say, "Man, she's really aging like shit." And I'm like, No, she's aging.
Yeah, well, they don't see that.
Oh
about men.
man, she really let herself go. No, she's aging. So
Without
now
Botox
I
or
have
plastic surgery.
right, and so I've made it a
Do you
point
feel the
now.
pressure to get plastic surgery one day?
No, I just feel not plastic surgery.
You don't
'cause
need it anyway.
No, I've thought about Botox in my frown lines right here
Where?
because they're deep. Well, right now I've been on spring break, so they're relaxed. But I do a lot of this, like with my kids. I'm like,
Maybe you need another glasses. Maybe some different prescription.
well, it just blocks it right there.
Yeah, but that gives character.
Well, it just makes my character look like
Like you're
I'm constantly
angry.
thinking, what the hell are you saying?
So now what happens with
So now I've been making it a point to like male actors. I guess I can't remember who we saw in the movie, and I was like, oh my god, he looks like shit.
Yes, they do,
He's
a lot of
aging
them.
terrible.
And what did he say?
He's like, well, the guy's like 80. Oh, so
He's allowed
it's
to.
okay. You know,
No,
it's
but-
like I go, you know, and here's my serious rant that I had that I threw at him.
Tell us.
I was like, you know, when you say that, and then you tell me that I'm beautiful,
Boom.
it's hard to really take that in when that's how you judge other women, and because you'll still point out, oh, so yeah, she's a very good looking woman.
Yeah, but you see, the thing is,
No,
as
but
we get go
well,
ahead,
hold on.
finish your thought.
And then and I said like, and then you have 3 daughters, and that's what you want them hearing, that they're screwed no matter what, because as soon as it starts,
They can't stay young forever
They can't.
unless you know.
Like, look at me. In my head, I'm like 26.
Yeah.
But
Forever.
I'm not. But the knees, the
your
hair.
knees?
No, I like what she said about she's daring them to change the status quo, and I think that's what
Yes.
we
Yeah.
need to take from that.
Always
We can be
have to keep pushing
yeah.
forward. Yeah.
and be the voice for people who can't do it or don't have the education to do it or the.
Education's important
Yeah.
for women.
So I thought it
everywhere.
was a brilliant book, but
I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it too.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. She made me laugh. Just she reminded me of Bones from the TV show, the murder mystery, just like that very matter of fact, scientific.
the Chanel.
Her character and Bones, like, it was the same, and I love that show. So my husband says I'm a Vulcan, because at home I'm very matter of fact and not loving enough, so I get told. So I thought it was hilarious. Everything she
Telling
said
you
and
has
the
to
way
be
she
for two then.
comes across with things, and I was like, I get that. Yeah, that's really funny. And I'd be laughing at, listening to it. He's like, what's so funny? I'm like, eh.
Well, I found it interesting just how much it allowed me to see how much people take things personal, and because I'm always working on that. I grew up. Is she mad at me?
Because
Did-
that's
did-
how we raise. As
Yes.
the oldest child, the only child, raised of parents who are really busy and stuff. We always like on edge. Is it okay? And then we raise to please others, which is so wrong.
Yeah,
And I
it's-
envy young women who have no worry, and whether they're on spectrum or not, no worry about what people think. Like it takes a long time to learn it. If
Yeah.
you don't
Well,
have it.
and so I'm constantly reminding myself, it's not personal. Don't take it personal.
Yeah.
And because I'll pull back. I'm afraid that someone's going to get upset. And it's like, okay, well, I'm just saying what I need to say. It's not my job to worry if they take it personal or not. Excuse me. So everybody around that behaves so ugly in the book, they're taking it personal, and it has nothing to do with the person that they're taking it out on. So I mean, it was just a good
reminder.
reminder.
Yeah.
10 hours later.
Don't take it personal.
Don't take it personal.
Well, I'm considering going into the Navy. That's her top choice, is the Naval Academy for college, and she is, again, pursuing a career in environmental engineering, and that's definitely I think that's why she's got a good chance of getting in, because
But
it's-
have a go as an officer if she can.
well, yes, that's why
Because
if you go through
until
the Naval Academy,
Yeah.
you go in as an officer. So
Oh, you start college first, and then you.
yeah, so you're
okay,
doing
that's
college
good. Yeah,
like
have her do that. Don't.
concurrent with some training, I think.
Okay.
So yeah, that's been her plan. So But because it's a field where there's not a lot of women, and because it's the military, it is what it is. I mean, like the sexual assault that gets
But it happened
covered
to
up.
men too. You should see. I mean, I know, but
I know, but I have to worry about my daughter.
no, but
they
I
can
have
worry
a
about
talk.
theirs. I'm so sorry.
No,
Hazel,
what
I
I
can
meant
stop
is
you.
that I can have a talk. I can have you talk to a woman officer in the Marine, and she can tell you she did the kinesiology degree first, and then she went to the Marine, and she had 500 men under her at time, and she can give you tips like, she thrived.
Yeah, well,
So
I'm glad.
It's very possible.
But because of how things still are,
yeah,
I do worry.
yeah, I would not want my
Yeah, we were talking. I don't know if you were here when I was saying about my stepdaughter. She's 24, and she had a sexual harassment issue with one of her supers, and she's in the Navy. So it was an ongoing issue, and she wasn't the only one. There were other women, but again, there were other women, and nothing had been done about it. So it's a matter of,
It's a men-dominated.
even though you complain about it, I mean, at some point, she was moved away from under his command.
Tell her no.
But that
she
was
can do
it. Like, he wasn't fired for it. She was just removed from being underneath.
I'm just saying that it was very hard being in a men-dominated field, and I wasn't on top of the class. But as hard as it is, I saw how many doors were open afterwards, because there are few women, and we need more women in it. And some people recognize it and want to hire women. So it opens a lot of doors. Plus, men are really cool. We did all kinds of sports. We had a blast. So there is an advantage to be in a men-dominated field, because eventually it should be 50-50.
Yeah.
Well, eventually, from 50 years ago
But like, look, Mexico.
to now.
Mexico, 50,
No, that's like 70
doesn't
years
mean that
ago.
women
70 years
didn't
ago.
work, but the college was really. So there is something to say about it's not as macho as you think. There is a lot of women in college in Mexico. After, I don't know if they work or something, and I think women should be able to choose if they want to be home and raise children. It's a very valid and very difficult job. So the choices, that's what you want. People.
I have family in Guadalajara, and then I have family in our small town, where you would think it's very stuck in time, but just in talking to my cousins, both men and women, I'm hearing more progressive attitudes, or
I think there is a lot of respect for women in, of course,
like more
not
so
every
now,
family.
to where sometimes when my mom and I have had these discussions where she's like, that's not proper or whatever. It's like, you're stuck in the ideas and the notions that you came with when you were young, like, and she has come to romanticize them. They're not like that.
Society doesn't stay frozen. It keeps changing. And when you leave it, you look at your country. If you like your country, oh, it was so nice, which I never thought. But it was, so basically, you demonize or romanticize from your own experience. So I think that, but I think it's a Catholic religion growing up, like, oh, you should do that, they should look like this and all this. And so I'm glad my mother threw all those words to the trash, so I could have choices.
Yeah, you were lucky.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, ladies, for joining me in the conversation. It was very informative to hear your different opinions, and I guess ultimately we've come a long way, but not that far, I guess, because there is still a lot of discrimination, especially in the scientific world, from your experience, Britt, and I guess it's just something we have to
But in
keep
this country,
working on.
in the US, you do have a voice more than other countries, and you have to use it. No matter what people say, I've always been respected for me speaking up when I was being shut down in my country. And here, it's nerve-wracking because you're like, oh my gosh, I want to say it. But they actually listen. Because I think this country, when so many women went to work during World War II, and it really changed the dynamic of the family in the US more than other countries. And I feel like women have more of a voice here. You know what I mean? Because you were raised in England, so.
Yes, yeah. England's pretty good, but the US is always ahead of the pack, so we're lucky to be here. But we still have to keep plodding forward.
Oh, it's far from perfect.
Yes.
What do you think, Cindy?
Yeah, I think it's definitely, even since we were kids, so we're in our mid 40s. And since we're kids, I've seen tons of changes, but
Not looking like it though.
No, your 50s are going to be great, you see. I'm loving my 50s.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again, ladies. I appreciate
Thank you,
you.
Chantal, for having
And
us.
we will talk to you guys another time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right.